Are disturbances ever non-technical? Is a question I recently asked myself. I went to the toilet in a public library and there was a sign. Out of order due to technical disturbance. Now, I heard that phrase before in different languages and I heard that phrase again and again and again. And it seems to be the case that maybe technical disturbances are kind of the only kind of actual disturbances, at least in a very specific niche. And this niche might be whenever something just doesn't work. Now, also if people, for example, just don't work in a show, then maybe it is not very wise to say, as the head of the show, let's say it's the late night show with Stephen Colbert, and you are Stephen Colbert, and now somebody or something is not working. Now, of course, Stephen Colbert himself doesn't decide what actually is put out, but probably there is somebody above him who decides this, and this one is probably the showrunner. Now, if something in the chain of command of all the people working on the show, all these different people, if there is something that doesn't work, maybe it is actually a technical problem. But the question then is, what actually is a technical problem? Technical is defined as relating to a particular subject, art, craft, or its techniques. Or the second meaning would be involving or concerned with applied and industrial sciences. So in general, what we see as technology seems to be the thing that is also seen as technical. So now, of course there's a difference in the word, but now what happens if one of these people, for example, gets sick for the next 30 minutes? Then of course the showrunner could say, okay, we have a problem because this one person of us is sick and maybe has diarrhea, maybe has something else. The problem is that maybe this person doesn't want to serve as a scapegoat, and also the person above this person wants to protect this person specifically. Maybe the daughter of this person had an accident, and now it's time for this person to go off from the show. So now the question is obviously, what do you put out? What do you put out to the public? It has to be something that nobody really can ask something about. At the same time, kind of describes the problem. At the same time, kind of satisfies the audience that actually hears this, listens to this, in a way that they, then again, don't ask more questions. So there are, of course, different alternatives. One we already mentioned, it's to just state it's this person's fault. But maybe it's not this person's fault. Maybe there is a problem and you haven't actually figured out what the problem actually is. Because it's not always just one person's fault. Maybe it's a team, a camera team, for example, that is out and about and is waiting, if instead of Stephen Colbert, this is a news anchor, and is waiting for a specific thing to occur for somebody, an interviewee, for example, to appear, and he's not here yet. So then the showrunner or the show connects to this external remote live thing, and nobody's here yet. So also then something has to be found. Something actually very similar can also be seen, I think, in private life. So if I say I have a certain problem and I don't show up at a specific time, even though somebody has an appointment with me, then of course I can say that there are multiple things that happened. One of these is that 3 years ago I didn't actually have my stuff together, and therefore reason one would be that 3 years ago I didn't have my stuff together, which then put a chain of events into effect that then led to me being late today. So this would be maybe the first reason. And this could actually be true, but maybe it's also because I actually didn't stand up today. But because I didn't stand up today is maybe not the whole reason, because maybe I just didn't stand up today because yesterday was something else that prevented me from setting the alarm properly. This could be a second reason. Then there is maybe a third reason, which is that in the morning my bike actually didn't work properly, maybe because to a technical disturbance, and then I couldn't arrive in time which led to me arriving 20 minutes later. In all of these cases, there is an argument to be made that this could be the genuine reason, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a multitude of different reasons. Maybe you won't ever find out what the actual reason actually is. So what I think holds true is that either in your personal life or also in technical life, you could say, there often just is no single reason that actually led to something. Because for causation actually to directly cause something else, a good example is I turn on the heater and then it usually gets warm. But this only works usually because sometimes maybe the heating in the house is out of order, maybe due to a technical disturbance, and then it just doesn't work. So the general theme of causation is that every time you do one, two happens. Now the problem is that two only happens, and all the data that we have accumulated so far, even if all the data we have accumulated so far, that every time we do something, one, two happens. Let's say it's a turkey, and the turkey, every time he gets fed, he's happy, and then wakes up the next day. But then he gets fed, and then it's Thanksgiving. So he doesn't wake up the next day, but instead he's eaten the next day. So all the data he could have accumulated and therefore formed his worldview of what is going to happen and what is likely to happen is kind of informed by the data of one. But since two never happens, he never experiences it. He never experiences it. So therefore, it's something that is unexpected. Some people already might just see as a black swan event, but some people might also just say it's not in the recorded data. So therefore, it's something that is unknown. It's an unknown variable that suddenly appears and turns the whole worldview of this turkey upside down. Or not, because he doesn't have one anymore. So, to come back to me, what I found useful in terms of something that sounds similar to a technical disturbance, whenever I might want to justify, for example, why I did something, I of course could name any specific reason, but I often find that it is just wrong to name these specific reasons, because due to the availability heuristic, for example, that I just have a few things available because I recently thought about them, therefore I think this is the cause actually for something. But mostly, I just don't know. I just am guessing into the dark, basically. And I just don't know what actually led to me not appearing on time. I mean, there are multiple reasons, probably, maybe, but also explaining them will already be oversharing. So for this reason, what I think often is two things. Whenever you justify decisions you made, you just say, I did this because I think it was right. But think it was right might also have some religious meaning, or could have some religious meaning because it often is used in a religious context. So therefore, what I usually say is, I did it because I thought it was useful. And I tried the best, basically. And because everybody tries the best, I think this is a good function. To say, I did this because I think it is useful. Or you can also find a different alternative to this. And whenever something doesn't work, it's because I didn't make it. Or I was not able to do this. And it's also just the outcome of all of this. No matter what led to me not being able to do this, to appear on time, this is the outcome. Now, coming back to the technical disturbances, often we just don't know what causes something. Often we just don't want to tell somebody else, and it might be oversharing to state in the late night show with Stephen Colbert that somebody just had this specific event and somebody might have diarrhea and therefore they went home, and this is just not that interesting, maybe. And therefore telling somebody else, in this case the audience, or it could also be in a public bathroom, where there is just a technical disturbance actually, and therefore the toilet doesn't work, seems to be a good alternative to stating different things, stating different reasons that might turn out to be true, might turn not out to be true. But it just seems to be that technical disturbances, or also technical malfunctions, are just a very easy scapegoat and a very easy phrase we can all use to cover something up, to cover up for something.